Let me ask you something personal. When was the last time you checked your bank balance and felt genuinely comfortable with what you saw? Not relieved, not anxious, not quickly closing the app before the number fully registered. Actually comfortable. For most people, that feeling is rare, and the reason is not always what they think it is. Welcome to Wealth Academy. My name is Dilawar, and here we take the most important money lessons in the world and turn them into stories that actually stay with you. Today we are talking about something that almost nobody discusses openly, something that lives quietly in the background of almost every financial struggle most people experience. It is called inflation, and by the end of this video, you will understand not just what it is, but exactly what it is doing to your money right now, today, while you are simply living your life. Let me start with a story that will feel familiar. There was a woman, let us call her Sana. Sana was 42 years old, careful with money her entire adult life, someone who had done everything she was told was responsible. She had saved consistently, she had avoided unnecessary debt, she had kept a healthy balance in her savings account for years. By most measures, she was financially disciplined in a way that most people around her were not. But something had been quietly bothering her for a long time, something she could feel but could not quite name. Every year, life seemed to cost a little more, not dramatically, not in any single obvious way, but slowly, persistently, things that used to feel affordable began requiring slightly more thought. The grocery run that used to be a predictable amount now regularly came in higher. The school fees that had felt manageable a few years ago now required more careful planning. A family dinner out, which used to be a simple and easy decision, now involved a moment of quiet mental calculation before saying yes. Her salary had increased over those same years, her savings account balance was higher than it had ever been, and yet, somehow, she felt financially tighter than she had a decade ago, not looser, tighter. She mentioned this to a younger colleague one afternoon, half expecting to be told she was imagining things. Her colleague listened and then asked one simple question. Sana, do you know what inflation has actually done to your savings over the last 10 years? Sana paused. She knew what inflation was, of course. She had heard the word her whole life, but she had never actually sat down and calculated what it had specifically done to her money, the savings she had been so careful and disciplined about. Her colleague took out a notebook and showed her, and what Sana saw in that notebook quietly changed everything. So what exactly is inflation, and why does it matter so much more than most people realize? Inflation is simply the rate at which prices rise over time. When inflation is running at 6% per year, something that costs 100 rupees today will cost 106 rupees next year. The year after that, it will cost roughly 112, and 10 years from now, that same thing will cost approximately 179 rupees. The item has not changed, its quality has not improved, nothing about it is different. It simply costs more because the purchasing power of money decreases over time. Each rupee you hold is able to buy slightly less than it could buy the year before. This is not a new phenomenon, it is not a crisis, it is the normal and expected behavior of almost every modern economy in the world. Central banks actually target a certain level of inflation deliberately because a healthy economy requires it. But here's what most people never fully absorb. What feels normal and expected at the economic level is quietly and consistently personally damaging at the individual level if you are not actively doing something to stay ahead of it. Let us go back to Sana and the notebook. Her colleague showed her something simple.
10 years ago, Sana had saved 100,000 rupees. She was proud of that. It had taken discipline and sacrifice to accumulate. She had put it in a savings account where it earned approximately 4% interest per year. At 4% annual interest over 10 years, that 100,000 had grown to approximately 148,000 rupees. The number in her account was nearly 50% larger than what she had started with. On the surface, this looked like genuine growth. But during those same 10 years, inflation in her country had averaged approximately 7% per year. Her colleague calculated what 100,000 rupees worth of purchasing power actually required after 10 years of 7% inflation. The answer was approximately 197,000 rupees. Sana stared at the two numbers. Her savings had grown to 148,000 rupees, but to have the same purchasing power she had started with, she needed 197,000. She had saved faithfully for 10 years, her number had grown, and she still lost nearly 50,000 rupees worth of real wealth, not because anyone had taken it from her, not because she had spent it, but because inflation had been running faster than her savings account was growing, every single year, silently, without any notification, without any alarm, without any moment where she felt the loss happen. She sat quietly for a long moment. Then she said something that her colleague never forgot. She said, "I thought I was saving money. I did not realize I was slowly spending it." This is the invisible tax. This is what inflation does to money that is sitting still while the world around it keeps moving. And here's what makes it so particularly dangerous compared to other financial mistakes. Most financial mistakes feel something. Overspending feels something. Making a bad investment feels something. Taking on too much debt feels something. There's a moment, a signal, a consequence you can identify and respond to. Inflation gives you no such signal. It works through the slow passage of time. It is patient in a way that financial mistakes rarely are. And it punishes people not for being reckless, but for being passive, for doing nothing wrong, for simply leaving money in the place that felt safe and responsible, without ever asking whether safe and responsible was the same as actually working. Now let's talk about what this actually means practically, because understanding that inflation exists is one thing, understanding what to do about it is something else entirely. The first thing to understand is that not all money needs to beat inflation. Your emergency fund, the money you keep immediately accessible for unexpected needs, that money has one job: to be there when you need it. Its job is not to grow, it is to be safe and reachable. Accepting that this portion of your money will lose a little ground to inflation over time is a reasonable and deliberate trade for the security and accessibility it provides. But the second thing to understand is that money beyond your emergency fund, money that is sitting in a savings account not because you need it accessible, but simply because that's where money goes by default, that money has no excuse for losing to inflation. That money should be working. The third thing to understand is that beating inflation does not require complicated financial knowledge or access to sophisticated instruments. It does not require large amounts to start with. It requires one thing above everything else: starting, because time is the most powerful variable in the entire equation, and every month of delay is a month of purchasing power quietly disappearing. People who invest in instruments that return 8, 10, 12% per year are not doing something mysterious or dangerous or exclusive. They are simply not leaving their money passive in a world that never stops moving. The fourth thing to understand is that inflation affects different things at different rates. Food tends to inflate faster. Technology tends to get cheaper. Healthcare and education historically inflate faster than general inflation. Understanding where inflation hits hardest in your own specific life helps you plan with real accuracy rather than abstract averages. Sana did not make any dramatic changes after that conversation with her colleague. She did not panic. She did not make rushed decisions. She took 3 months to educate herself properly, to understand her options, to think carefully about what made sense for her specific situation. Then she made one clear decision. She separated her money into 2 distinct purposes with complete clarity for the first time. The first portion was her emergency fund, 3 months of living expenses sitting in a savings account, immediately accessible, not expected to grow meaningfully, serving its one important purpose.
The second portion was everything else. Money she would not need for at least 3 years. Money that had simply been sitting by default in the same savings account as the emergency fund without any real reason beyond habit and inertia. This money she began moving gradually and carefully into instruments that had a realistic chance of growing faster than inflation. It was not exciting, it was not dramatic, it did not feel like a transformation in the moment. But 3 years later, for the first time in over a decade, Sana looked at her financial picture honestly and saw something she had not seen in a very long time. She was no longer losing ground. She told her colleague at a simple lunch one afternoon, "I spent 10 years being careful and going backward. Now I am being equally careful and actually moving forward. The only thing that changed was where the money went, not how much of it there was." Here is the deepest truth about inflation and why it matters beyond the numbers. Inflation is not just an economic concept, it is a test of awareness. It rewards the people who understand that doing nothing is not the same as doing nothing wrong, that passivity with money is itself a choice with consequences, that the world does not pause and wait politely while your savings account quietly tries to keep up. The people who build real wealth over ordinary lifetimes, on ordinary incomes, are not people with exceptional opportunities or unusual intelligence or special access to things others cannot reach. They are simply people who understood one thing early enough to act on it. Money that sits still loses. Money that moves thoughtfully wins. And the gap between those 2 outcomes widens every single year, driven by nothing more dramatic or mysterious than the quiet and patient and completely ordinary force of inflation. Sana understood this at 42. "Better late than never," she told her colleague with a small smile, "but I wish someone had told me at 22. And that is exactly why we are telling you now. If this opened your eyes to something you had not fully seen before, write in the comments, "I will not let inflation win." Like the video, subscribe to Wealth Academy, and hit the bell because next time we go even deeper into exactly how to make your money grow faster than the world around it is moving.